Hey y'all, it's Pierre from Game Press, and I am here once again talking about the 2.14 patch notes. Since there is so much information to break down, we are breaking this up into various groups. This time we are talking about creature updates. So this is going to be things that have changed to creatures that are currently in the game. So let's get to it. So for common creature changes, first we have Archaeotherium. Its health got buffed from 3,300 to 4,650. Its speed went from 121 to 123. And it got a deceleration resistance from 0% to 100%. So basically, it cannot be slowed. That is a huge health buff for this creature. It's pretty funny. This one on our last tier list was pretty much a joke. We put it at the very bottom. We said that if we brought back the lowest tier, this would be the only creature in it. And it gets a buff this update. It's not a bad buff. It can survive a lot longer. It still only has Mutual Fury and Strike as its only attacks. So it only has one attack it can do. And it's a strike. It's not even a impact or a rampage. So while this is a nice little buff to it, we're not sure what it does, honestly, in regards to the meta, or if it's even going to be viable in the common tournaments. Iguanodon is the other common that was changed. Its attack went from 1,000 to 1,150, and its distraction resistance went from 0% to 50%. Once again, kind of like Archaeotherium, we really aren't sure why this got a change. It's not really something that a lot of people use in tournaments or even in the arena at the lower levels. So it's a nice little attack buff, and it can't be distracted as much, but we aren't sure if that really does anything for it. Rare creature changes. Host Eagle Gen 2. Evasive Strike becomes Distraction. So now it has a guaranteed damage reduction instead of 75% chance to get incoming damage reduced. We're not sure if it's going to make this relevant in rare tournaments, to be quite honest with you. Evasive could be good, but distracting is also good as well. So once again, kind of like the commons, it's not really a huge change that we think is going to make a lot of difference. Epic creature changes. In Arctopelta, Taunting Shields becomes Taunting Resilient Group Impact. This is actually a really good change to this creature. This is one of the few creatures that could swap in and or go head-to-head with Phlox like Argenteryx. And giving it a group move makes it that much better. So we expect this creature to become even more dominant in the tournaments that Phlox are allowed. And it's nice to see some more Phlox counters being buffed a little bit. Speaking of Argenteryx, that one also got a little change. Its crit reduction resistance went from 50% to 100%. So, basically that means that you can't remove its crit whenever it has a crit buff. Not the end of the world. We don't really see a lot of difference, honestly, in how it's going to perform in battle. Diplodocus got a really big change. Decelerating Rampage becomes Group Decelerating Rampage. Stun resistance goes from 0% to 100%. Deceleration resistance goes from 50% to 100%. And distraction resistance goes from 0% to 50%. This is a huge buff for this creature. Diplodocus already has quite a bit of HP. It's got a very high attack. And the only thing that kind of kept it out of the meta in the tournaments, honestly, was the ability to be able to swap in Rhino and stun it. But you can't do that anymore. It also has a group decelerating rampage now, so it's going to be even better against those pesky Phlox. So while it can't cycle rampage and shield advantage anymore, we still think it's going to be, this is a really good buff for it, and we really feel like it's going to dominate in tournaments. Edmontoguanodon, or Eddie, as we like to call it, Resilient Impact becomes Group Resilient Impact. Once again, we're pretty sure this change happened to counter those Phlox. Edmontoguanodon has a lot of heal moves. That seems to be mostly what it's meant for, but it's nice that it gets a group impact, and it might be viable in, once again, some of those tournaments. Host Eagle. Evasive Strike becomes Cunning Strike, and Distraction becomes Distracting Impact. This is the first time that the eagle has a damage multiplier. It had all strike moves before. So it becomes better in that it's got an impact move. And once again, kind of like the other eagle, evasive strike's not a bad move, especially if you're able to evade. But cunning strike's also nice because you get a little bit more distraction in there. So we're not really sure if it's going to be viable for tournaments or anything else like that, but not a bad change. Ovilophosaurus. Cunning impact becomes group cunning impact. Speed goes from 125 to 127. Stun resistance goes from 0% to 50%. Rend resistance goes from 0% to 75%. And deceleration resistance goes from 0% to 100%. So these changes definitely make Ovilophosaurus much better than Ovifomoloch, which is very interesting. It, once again, has tools to counter Phlox and Thylacetator, which is actually really nice in some of the tournaments because that one can be a really pain to deal with. So you can't slow it, you can't rend, you can, don't have a chance. It has a chance to not be stunned. So this might be a really good tournament creature especially in the epic hybrid tournaments. Stegoceratops. Slowing impact becomes group decelerating impact. Once again, this change makes it a little bit better against Phlox. Group decelerating impact received a cooldown change from 2 to 1. So it's going to be able to do that, cycle that move a lot quicker, and especially after digging in or stunning. So we really think this is a good change and could really impact especially tournaments. Legendary creature changes. Glyptoceras and Rinchosian. Both of those got crit reduction resistances, 50% to 100% for Glyptoceras, and Rinch got 75% to 100%. They're going to be able to do more critical hits even after a cunning attack, but we're not really sure. We don't think this is going to make a huge difference in battle. Monostegatops. Slowing impact becomes group decelerating impact. This is a good move, a good change for Monostegatops. We still don't think it's going to bring it back into relevance. It is, once again, nice to have that group move against Phlox, but its stats and resistances are still so low. There are a lot better options, we feel like, in legendary tournaments especially, but it's not a bad move for it. Unique creature changes. Alberto Spinos. So it already got the stat changes was a couple weeks ago. So those already are in game. Now it's getting Lethal Swoop, becomes Merciless Alert. We already knew this was going to happen. Merciless Alert is a really cool move. It's a good move. It's going to attack and bleed. And then whenever it's not secured, so whenever it's threatened, it also automatically swaps out. So we think this is a much better turn one option. And it also gives it another move that it can actually hit something with. Because Lethal Swoop previously had a delay, and Merciless Alert does not have a delay on it. Andrew Tops. Attack becomes 1600 from 1550. Health goes from 3300 to 3900. Stun resistance goes from 50% to 75%. And distraction resistance goes from 75% to 100%. I'm not a huge fan of the look of this creature. However, as difficult as this creature is to make, most people were wanting some sort of buff on it. It needed it. It has a really good kit, but the stat and the resistances it had just didn't allow it to shine. It was too easily swapped into. So the health buff, the stun resistance buff, as well as the distraction resistance buff, I think is a huge thing for it. And I think we might see it more in the arena. Fogerex. Swap in lockdown is removed. Now, quick note on this. We are not sure if that just means it can't swap in and lock down something, or if the entire swap in move was changed on Fogerex. So we've got note. We're asking about it on the forum. So we're not really sure what that is, but we'll keep you up to date as much as we can. Attack went from 1600 to 1500, and health went from 4050 to 3900. And then the critical hit chance went from 15% to 10%. So basically, Faux Rex was like a Swiss Army knife. It could come in and almost do anything. It could turn a match around from somebody could be down 0-2, and Faux Rex could come in and pull out a win. So we really think these changes are going to allow it to be the glass cannon that we originally think it should be, that just kind of coming in and hitting hard, but it's going to be easier to die. Don't forget, there's also the change to critical sidestep that also affected Faux Rex. So whether or not the actual swap in move has changed, that's something that could really make or break this creature. So we are not sure. Once again, it just says swap in lockdown. We don't know if that means the entire move itself or if it means just the lockdown portion of that move. So if it lost its swap in move completely, this is a huge nerf to Faux Rex. Terravexus, distracting rampage becomes cunning rampage. Venomous counter is added, and attack goes from 1200 to 1300. So we're pretty excited about this buff. Once again, Terravexus is kind of one of those older uniques that was really good at one point, and then it kind of lost its meta, and it might be coming back a little bit. Venomous counter is a distracting move, which is really nice. We don't think this is going to 100% put it into relevance because it still does not have a turn 1 distracting option. It's still going to get hit hard because distracting rampage and cunning rampage both have a delay on them. But this could be something that could be viable depending on the team it's working with. Okay, Stygidarex. Lethal Swoop becomes Merciless Alert, which is that same new move that Alberto Spinos is getting. And then Armor Piercing Counter becomes Raking Counter. So Raking Counter is the one where it will remove the dodge, it will remove anything else like any evasive, and hit a creature. So we think this is a buff. Merciless Alert is a great option for Lethal Swoop instead because, once again, Stiggy had 2 swoop moves. The Cleansing Swoop and then Lethal Swoop. And then it has Instant Invincibility and it has Superiority Strike. So turn 1, after it swapped in especially, it only had 1 move to work with. It had Superiority Strike. So now Merciless Alert is a great way to start that bleed going on your opponent, but also attacking it. So we think this is a pretty good buff. We'll have to see how it works out in battle. But we're really excited to see that it's getting some more love. Okay, so this is Apex creature changes. And there are some really big ones. So Host Maximus, distraction resistance went from 0% to 75%. So this is great against Cunnings. Host Maximus already has a pretty good kit, but it still has cooldown issues with some of its moves. So we're not quite sure this is going to put it into meta relevance. But we do think this is a solid step in the right direction. We would like to see some more things changed on that. Hydra Boa. Attack went from 1150 to 1300. Armor went from 10% to 15%. Rend resistance went from 0% to 50%. DOT resistance went from 0% to 50%. And then distraction resistance went from 50% to 100%. We already thought Hydra was kind of coming into the meta, especially as people started leveling and boosting it. And these changes make it even better. So, it can't be distracted. It can, its bleed is going to be a lot lower, and it already has quite high damage with an instant move. So we are really excited to see what this does and how it performs in the meta. Mortem Rex. Health went from 4,500 to 4,800. In addition, we want to make note that Roar became a priority move. So we kind of already talked about that in the move change video, but honestly, we think this is going to be a pretty good move or addition of a buff for Morty. It can survive a lot longer, 4,800s, 300 extra health. We think it's going to be able to two-shot creatures a lot better with that priority move. We really aren't sure exactly how it's going to work out compared to some of the other buffs that, for example, Ref got. But we'll have to kind of see how that does in the arena. Referenantum. Okay, Referenantum. This creature, I think this one went from what we're calling 0 to hero in the best creature in this patch, we're thinking, based on paper. Health went from 4,200 to 4,800. Speed went from 125 to 126. Critical chance went from 10% to 20%. Stun resistance went from 50% to 75%. Taunt resistance went from 0% to 100%. Rend resistance went from 25% to 75%. DOT resistance went from 25% to 50%. And distraction resistance went from 50% to 100%. Wow, that's a lot of changes to one creature. First of all, 600 HP added to it, and we have 4,800 health on a cunning creature. That's huge. This thing's going to be really hard to kill. Don't forget that its turn 1 move, it has another option with Super Distract. Super Distract now is not only an impact, but it does not have a delay anymore. So Ref is just going to be able to come in there, hit hard, distract, and you can't distract it back. And even DOT is going to be hard because it got a resistance to DOT. So we think this almost might be too much, especially with that health. That is a huge buff to a cunning creature that has constant distract moves. It's the distraction king now. So we'll have to see how this works out, but we're expecting this to be one of the best creatures in the game after this patch goes live. So if you aren't already rating for Ref, make sure to get in there and do that. So quite a few creature changes. This is really going to shake up the meta, we think. It really is. We can't wait to see how this works. It looks like they're really putting an emphasis on getting some more fierce buffs in there to counter those really powerful, resilient creatures that we have right now. Once again, it's kind of hard to say exactly how things are going to work out. We could talk all day and look at numbers and run, simulations, but honestly, sometimes it's just getting in there and playing with it before we really know how things are going to go. So, we'll kind of do some more videos. I'm sure IDGT will have some amazing videos coming out showcasing the changes these creatures are getting, and we'll really see, hopefully, what the new meta looks like. So we have a couple more videos coming out about the patch notes, so make sure to check those out. Make sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss anything. And thanks for listening, y'all.